Black Ice Chronicles massive. This is Crazy D. What am I going to talk about today? I want to talk about being bussed over to the west side of Cleveland, over to an elementary school called Vertebrost. Matter of fact, the elementary school looked just like the elementary school that they closed. It was right up the street from my house. I could walk to my elementary school. But somehow what had happened in the late 60s, early 70s in places like Boston, etc., finally got to Cleveland, Ohio in the 80s. And the big desegregation plan that Teddy Kennedy put into place finally activated in Cleveland under Reagan. And what I could never really understand about busing and the so-called desegregation is, I always thought the people who had the problem should have been the ones who got bussed over to the people that they had the problem with. So what do I mean by that? White folks, due to white supremacy and racism, instituted segregation. So their children should have been the ones that were mandatory to get on a bus and be bussed over to the people who they had a problem with, so they could get to understand those people. So they would have an understanding, because that's what's happening in the society today. There's not enough understanding because white people whose parents, and some of them who still practice white supremacy today, have a deficiency because they live only amongst themselves, with a sprinkle pepper here and a pepper there of some people, and they call that multiculturalism, but whatever. So I always thought that the people should be bussed over to the people that they had problems with. Plus, by the time busing got to Cleveland, you know what happened? Black people from the east side got bussed over just to meet their black people on the west side. Hey, west side black people. So really, most of the white folks who could moved out, moved their kids. They still lived in the neighborhoods where the schools were, but they put their kids in private school. So they still kept practicing segregation, right? So we ended up going over there, and the only white folks that we saw were the ones whose parents couldn't afford to take them out of the schools, if it be elementary school, junior high, now it's called middle school, and high school, and move them into parochial or private schools. The only ones we saw were what would be considered white trash. Okay. But not by our standards, by their standards. Okay, so we're over there, we're going through the 44 reading skills program that Reagan instituted, then later he de-instituted it. I can see that playing again if Trump gets into office. Some bullshit, just following Reagan's plan. It was a failure the first time. But anyway, so my story begins, I gave you a little subtext so we can get to the story. My story begins, we're in we had theory class, and then we had this music teacher. She was like maybe in her mid 40s, Caucasian, and she was putting a choir together, and of course the choir consisted majority of black students, because that's what was there. Westside and Eastside Blacks met each other for the first time, so maybe that was a good thing. But anyway, so we were in the music class, and she decided that she was going to put a choir together, and so she picked out certain students. She had us sing or whatever, and saw whoever who baritones, tenors, whatever, you understand, people who understand music. So we're in the special class session, which takes us out of class. I don't know if it was recess, but it took the students that she handpicked out of the class, and we were sitting in this choir class that she had put together, and we were learning the song. So we were learning the Star Spangled Banner, right? So we were learning the Star Spangled Banner. And the rock is red glare, the bombs bursting in air, show true proof through the night that the flag was still there, all that shit. Okay. So we had a station, WUAB, channel 43, that when TV used to sign off, it didn't stay on 24 hours a day. It used to sign off, and they had the sign off, and they would have the Star Spangled Banner playing, and they would have the flag waving, and they had the drums, boom, 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 boom. So they would go, gave through to the night, that the flag, boom, 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 right? But it was instrumental. So I was used to hearing that, right? And I liked it. I liked it. So we were in class, and it came around to the part where it says the bombs bursting in air. So then they always had the shortest to the tallest, so they always had the tallest in the back. Like whenever I got on the bus, I always sat in the front. I didn't want to sit in the back. It was just something, what I'm saying? Something before I even knew about civil rights or anything, someone wanted me to sit in the front of the bus. So sitting in the back of the class because of your height, that was just another example of having black boys in the back. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion for another time. Anyway, so when it got to that part, I went boom, 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 boom. I hit the thing, right? So she stops the whole class and said, "Who did that?" And I'm smiling, and I said, I did it, And then she was like, "Why did you do that?" And I said, it's like on channel 43 when they sign off, they have the sign off, and then they have the drums, the toms. They're actually toms, boom, 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 hitting that sound. So she tells me, now I've never gotten into any trouble at all in elementary school up to that point, and I had never got in trouble with her. But she tells me all of a sudden that you're disrupting the class and you're disrespecting the Star Spangled Banner. I'm disrespecting the motherfucking Star Spangled Banner that I was motherfucking liking from a little kid watching it on channel 43 when channel 43 was sign off at 11 or midnight. She tells me you're disrespecting the Star Spangled Banner, and get up and you're no longer in the class. Go back down to your class. Now I'm in second grade. Mind you, and this is going on. And I at that time I have no understanding or understanding of white supremacy or racism. But for some reason, her patriotism set in my opinion, white supremacy mind state. Her patriotism set in, and somehow a little black boy in the second grade couldn't be patriotic. Now this is some shit that if a little white boy had done it, she probably would have laughed it off, and I still would have remained in class. But she tells me to get up. She's basically embarrassing me and yelling at me, to say, get up and go back down to your class. I'll tell your teacher later. Disrespecting the motherfucking Star Spangled Banner. So I get up and I leave. And, of course, I'm a little kid, so there's a lot of confusion there. Like she wouldn't even let me explain like I told her, everyone knew Channel 43. Shit, that bitch probably lived in Lorraine because that was on the west side. Everybody knew WUAB, Channel 43, and they knew how they signed off because that was one of the main UHF channels that everybody watched with the Friday and Saturday, Sunday night movies and shit, and the prize movie and shit. So she knew what I was talking about, but she wouldn't let me explain. And see, that early experience, thinking back on it, shows me the same. It's the same mind state that police who are white supremacists have towards black people who they just automatically don't give them the benefit of the doubt, and they will not let them explain. And nowadays, because they're in such fear for their life while you're trying to explain, they then feel that you're somehow bucking up in their mind, and then they want to get physical and cause you harm. Okay, so white supremacy can cause not only physical harm but psychological harm. But I went down to the what we call lavatories then. Like when you walked into the boys' lavatory, there were no doors on the stalls, which I have a whole nother story about that. Like, that's ridiculous. You got to take a shit, but you got stalls open, and then people can see you in there taking a shit. But anyway, that's a whole nother story about that, how they just, treated black children like subhumans. But anyway, so I go down to the laboratory for a minute, and I'm thinking this out, like, what did I do wrong? All I did was hit the sound, and it was actually on time. But then, like, Paul Mooney has a joke about when you watch the old Tarzan movies, and then the drums start playing, and then the white woman say, the drums, stop the drums. So that is actually psychologically true, because all I did was hit the drum. I hit it on time, and it wasn't to be a joke. It was in respect for it. So then what happens is one of the guys comes into the restroom too. His name is Larry. He was a black boy like me too, second grade. And he said, I said, what you doing here? And he said, I left because I told her that she was wrong for kicking you out the class. And so I got up and left too, and told her I'm not being a part of it. Shortly after that, the whole thing dissolved after that. But that showed you black solidarity, even though as children we didn't know what was going on, but that was black solidarity. So that's my story, and I tied it into what's happening with the police right now. And so put all the shit together, figure it out in your mind, and get the meaning. The Black Ice Chronicles.